For coming. My name's Jim Toomey. I'm the town moderator. The purpose of this meeting is just to preview the town meeting and to ferret out if we have any questions, concerns, things that might be addressed before the meeting so we can have a smooth meeting. The objective is to have an efficient meeting and move things along and get business done appropriately, but at the same time, we want to make sure if people have questions or concerns on anything that's involved in the meeting, they have a chance to express it. So that's the way we try and run the meeting. From a preliminary standpoint, I think, as usual, Kathy does a good job of setting everything up, and we have the tellers and people and all of that preliminary work has been done. There's a lot that goes into the initially getting this going, so thank you, Kathy, for getting everything up and running so we can start, things get going. Good. If anyone has any questions or concerns before we get to the meeting, you can get to me through Scituate at Gmail. SCITMOD at Gmail, and if there are any questions, let me know, and we'll try and get them answered before the meeting. All right, we'll start with the special town meeting, with 6 articles there. Again, we're going to use the consent agenda approach, and the idea of the consent agenda is to take care of those items that are pretty routine, annual kind of catch-up sorts of things. But again, if people have questions or concerns or want to address something in those articles, we want to have a process where they can have that done. So what I will do is we'll run through what the articles are, give people the opportunity to hold them. If they choose to hold something, we'll take it out of the consent agenda. The things that remain will vote at one time. Requires a 2/3 vote because we're moving things out of order. And actually, the unpaid bills of prior year are included. We need a unanimous vote because that requires 9/10 vote at the town meeting. So we'll look for a unanimous vote on these items. And those items are Articles 1, 2, 4, and 6. Article 1 is to appropriate money to pay for unpaid bills of a prior year. These are bills that come in after the end of the fiscal year, and we have to have a special vote in order to approve them at that time. The next item is Article 2. And again, if anyone has questions on things we're going through here, or comments or concerns, let me know. Next one is Article 2, which is budget reconciliations, which is basically moving money around to make sure the budgets, different items are balanced and addressed. Next in the consent agenda will be Article 4, which is to rescind borrowing on projects that have been completed. We're just cleaning out borrowing that had been authorized and has been taken care of and is no longer needed. Again, that's a cleanup. The last one is a formality which requires a town meeting vote to grant an easement. This easement is for the gas company Eversource to put a meter in at Musquashnet Pond. I want you to notice how nicely I said that, Musquashnet Pond, practice that. So that will be all contained in the consent agenda. Any issues or concerns with the consent agenda? All right, then we'll go back to the items that we'll take up individually. The first one of those being Article 3. That is a article to reduce or retire part of the debt for the Widow's Walk project. Basically, there's less money in the mortgage and less payments to be made. Have the money available to reduce that debt. That'll be a majority vote. The next is Community Preservation Act. There's a requirement that certain portions of the amount received by the town each year be dedicated to specific programs. Because the amount received is never known at the time of the town meeting until we actually see the figures, there's a need to adjust what's been set aside for community housing. So that would be one aspect of the community preservation issue in Article 5. The next is a appropriation from the Community Preservation Fund of $25,000 for the engineering for the Mordecai Lincoln project. The reason that's in the special is it would enable the town to get this underway before the beginning of the next fiscal year so that the project can be addressed. And we have another article on this in the annual meeting, which will go to the substance of the project. Any issues on the CPA adjustments? Okay, the next one we're going to take up will be the Article 7, which, if I'm understanding it correctly, adds sections to the waterway regulations, which basically codify the common law right for people to fish, fowl, and navigate in the area between the high tide and the low tide. Something kind of unique to Massachusetts, and this just incorporates that into our bylaws. Anyone anticipate any questions or concerns around that? And the last is a revisit to recreational vehicles parking overnight in the Cole Parkway. So I understand it, the bylaw that was passed last year was not approved by the Attorney General. So there's been some work to sharpen this up a little bit, and hopefully there won't be any questions on that. Basically, it limits or restricts RV parking in the evening hours at the Cole Parkway. No further issues there. Good. We finished the special town meeting in 7 minutes. So moving right along.
Well, the real thing, right?
Yeah. Okay, that brings us to the annual meeting. Again, we have a consent agenda. We'll go through the same process. I'll read through the items in the consent agenda. If anyone wants one held because they want to address it, all they have to do is say hold. We'll remove that from the consent agenda. It will be dealt with separately, and then we will go on with the ones that remain. So the consent agenda consists of the first one, the Article 1. That's the compensation of elected officials. That would be included. Next one is to accept reports of the boards and committees. Again, that's a routine pro forma item. Then we move over to Articles 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, all of which are the enterprise accounts, which are the accounts that are funded in part, in whole or in part, by user fees. And Article 5 is the waterway fund. Article 6 is the golf course. Article 7 is sewer wastewater. 8 is the transfer station, and 9 is water. Again, this is a matter of moving the money that is raised by the user fees and put into these funds to fund those various operations. Anyone see any issues on any of the enterprise funds? Okay. Next item we have in the consent agenda is the article which takes any money that's left over from the amount that the town is allowed to appropriate and dedicates that to a stabilization fund. Again, that's an article we do every year to keep any excess tax levy up to the limit moved to stabilization. Article 11 deals with revolving funds. It is required by the statutes that the limits on the amount that can be expended for each of the revolving funds. Again, this is money that comes into the town in the way of fees to cover certain expenses. And by statute, you have to have a limit on each fund. And this would set those limits on the revolving funds. There's, I don't know, 15 or so of them. Again, this is really a bookkeeping issue, not one. Doesn't set up any new revolving funds, just what's been in existence all along. Next article in the consent agenda is Article 13. Article 13 is the reconciliation of CPA projects, much like what we did with the borrowing, which is for projects which have been completed. This will return funds that were not needed in order to complete projects which are now behind us. So these unexpended funds will go back to the appropriate portion, part of the community preservation program or accounts, and it simply cleans up the books so that those monies are in a place where they can be used. And the last but not least is something that's required of every town every year. Not sure why they make you take a town meeting vote every year, but they do. And this is if the state does any land work in the waterways, they require us to reimburse or to indemnify them for any liability that's incurred. You don't have any choice on that, so that's a vote that's taken every year. I'm not sure what happens if you vote it down. You don't get any state money for waterway projects. So that's the consent agenda. Anyone see anything?
I just have a question. You said Article 13 is part of it, and was there one more? 15?
Did I miss one?
No, you're 15.
15 is chapter 91 liability, right?
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, you got them all? Okay. Okay, and that brings us back to the articles we'll deal with individually. The first one is the capital plan for the town. This is the capital expenses. It's a process involved where this has to go through. It's a plan developed by the administration. That then is approved by the selectmen, goes through the review by the capital planning committee. We'll get the recommendation of the capital planning committee, which my understanding they have voted to approve the capital plan as presented. We'll take all of these items A through items B, together in one vote. Typically, we've been able to do that. If there's a question on anything in particular, we can address it as it comes up. But the approval here, this will require a 2/3 vote because there's borrowing involved for the water mains. So if there's any issue around the 2/3 vote, then they have to separate the water mains. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it if there's any issue. Next item is the budget for the coming fiscal year. What we have traditionally done here is we go through the budget department by department, by each department, and if anyone wants to discuss the budget for that particular department, we'll ask them to call out hold. If they hold an item, we'll take that aside, we'll go through the rest of the budget, we'll take a vote on the budget, and then have a discussion on any departmental departments that have been pulled out by virtue of a hold. Pretty sure, Nancy, there's no 2/3 votes there, right? Everyone's majority?
Yeah, there's nothing weird.
Not following. So that will be a majority vote. Article 4, Articles 5 through 11, is the consent agenda. We won't have to deal with those hopefully. Next article we come to individually is the CPA projects. There are a number of projects there. I understand maybe some discussion on one or two of those, so what I will do is we'll handle that similar to what we've done with the consent agenda in the past, which is I'll go through the list, and if someone wants to hold one of those, we'll hold it. Otherwise, we'll vote on all at once. Item health, we'll vote on the remaining items, and then we'll have a discussion on what is held. All that is money, we have to have a recommendation from the community preservation committee. We can't spend the money unless that's been voted, I think, approved. And most of all been approved, so we can just ask.
I expect there will be a couple of discussions.
Good. Because so far, it doesn't seem like there's much to talk about.
When I listened to the last selectmen advisory board meeting, they said CPC is going back to advisory before town meeting. I don't know, that's rehash, is that true?
Say that again?
That the people who are doing Pier 44 are coming to advisory.
Yes.
For another go around, to try to.
Well, it's a discussion, I'm not sure how, it's up to the advisory committee.
It's just been so transparent that suddenly right before town meeting, we're gonna have a vote, that's all, just wondering.
There might be, that's up to the advisory committee. But they granted us, I'll call it an audience to come in front of them prior to the town meeting to talk about their opinion of the article versus ours.
People have asked people, that's why I never said.
Next, Article 13 was in the consent agenda, and that brings us to Article 14, which is a request from the South Shore Regional School Committee, that also known as South Shore Voc Tech, to revise the regional agreement. Main thrust of that, as I understand it, is to add the town of Marshfield to the region. And then I think there are also some editorial things that are done. The whole agreement is set out in the attachment to one of the appendices to the advisory committee report. It's all redlined. I doubt people are going to get into the details of that. If they do, we'll deal with it. That is a majority vote, and that's something that has to happen in all of the member towns for the regional district.
I would expect that Superintendent Hickey will be in attendance.
But
I would expect that Superintendent Hickey will be in attendance.
yes, I think I saw something that said he was. 15 is chapter 91 again. Hopefully that's done with. And last but not least, we have the planning board articles to amend the zoning bylaws. We have the excitement of common driveways and parking. Article 16 is common driveways. We'll want a report from the planning board. This report is 2/3 vote. So we'll have that. As I understand it, there might be some confusion on this. As set out in the warrant, there's a red line strikeout. It's very clear in terms of the changes that are being made to both of these. In the advisory committee, some of the strikeout appears, but I didn't see some of the red bold, which would be, so I think we need to look at the warrant itself. If anyone wants to look at the details, I don't think that appears, correct me if I'm wrong, in the advisory committee handout. I assume that's a printing issue.
Do you have a black and white copy? You don't have the book, you
Oh,
have
the
a
book
black
is
and
right
white
here.
copy?
Right here, which
Oh, it is, all right. Maybe it's just a copy I got that didn't have it. Okay.
Here, switch.
You have the pre-printer version.
I got the black and white copy, I guess. Okay, never mind.
We tried to make it easy.
Is Alice saying how we said, never mind. Good, all right, so this is all spelled out with the changes, which is, that makes it very clear.
Nobody came to the public hearing on these articles,
Okay,
so
so that shouldn't be too.
can I just ask a question? In which order, after the motion is moved, you want the planning board report before the advisory and the selectmen, or how, what order are you gonna have?
Actually, Tony and I are gonna talk about that, because there's been, I've managed to confuse that year to year and article to article. So I think what I'm thinking is we'll have the sponsor get up and make the motion and get the second. Then we'll have the board who is sponsoring, which in this case will be the planning board, give an explanation, and in the course of that, I'd ask for, you know, the spiel that you give about the meeting was posted and held and so forth. And then we would go to the advisory committee and ask for them. We always ask for the selectmen's recommendation on things, so that's the way I'm thinking of doing it. We're gonna discuss that just to make sure we're all on the same page, so I've managed to confuse that in years past, so
Okay, great,
we're gonna straighten that out so it's consistent,
thank
maybe.
you, thank you.
That's all we've got. Seems like pretty non-controversial.
Is it?
Anything to do with zoning is controversial in this town.
Do we need a PowerPoint? Anything? Because I've got Rich Long on standby. I was gonna let him know if we needed any PowerPoint screens or anything like that. No? Okay, so cancel PowerPoint. Any tripods or anything like that? Anybody bringing that stuff or anything? No? Is this a town meeting, moderators meeting? Wow, okay.
Any other questions or concerns? Again, if anyone's watching this, sitmod, SCITMOD @gmail. We look forward to those emails. I know they'll come flooding in on Saturday morning. Make my day. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.